The Moton Mailbag is brought to you by the Robert Russo Moton Museum, located in Farmville, Virginia. The Moton Museum is a civil rights museum focusing on the history of Prince Edward County between 1951 and 1964.
Mailbag, Season 2, Episode number 10.
I'm Irene.
I'm Leah.
I was like, okay, introduce yourself to the class.
And we're bittersweet because this is the Season 2 finale.
Yeah.
But we'll see you again.
Yeah.
This year's almost come to a close. See ya. Hopefully next year's better.
Fingers crossed for
Claiming
2021.
that, yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yep.
But we've got some more questions for y'all before we go.
Yeah, we do.
Alright, to get us started, what's your favorite holiday movie?
So, I'm an animated kind of person.
Okay.
So for me, it's either the original 1966, How the Grinch Stole Christmas,
Good.
or the original Phineas and Ferb Christmas special. I have that album on my holiday playlist,
Good.
and I'm not ashamed.
I want to finish
I'll support that.
Yeah,
I think
I'm with it.
Danville is really nice. It's a nice holiday tune.
So
Just
for the-
go
So,
ahead.
I was just going to say, for anybody who is older than us and have never seen that, it's a Disney Channel show that ran and no longer runs. But you can find it on Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And Perry the Platypus is in it. He's very important.
Oh yeah,
He's
Partridge and a Pear.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
Yes.
Kanan?
I was going to say, what about you, Leah? How about I save mine?
Okay, so I changed mine to one, like a cuter one.
Mm.
So mine is Annabelle's Wish. Annabelle is she's a cow. Okay, let's start with that.
Aw.
To kind of set the stage. And every year Santa lets them talk at Christmas. That's the whole spiel. But Annabelle's friend, a little boy named Billy, doesn't have a voice. So instead of being able to talk one year, Annabelle gives her wish to Billy, who is now can speak.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never seen that before.
Something to look into.
Mm-hmm. It's cute.
Where can you find it at, Leah?
I haven't watched it in 10,000 years. I have no clue. Probably Google it.
Fair enough.
Googling.
There you go.
I'm sure you can find a DVD or a VHS or something on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Order it today, you might get it before Christmas. Muppets Christmas Carol
Yes.
is my favorite Christmas holiday movie in general of all time. It's the only, fun fact, the only recognized version of the movie version of that story by Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol. Just for a fun fact, which makes it the best of all time.
Interesting.
And it's the best.
the
It's
Muppets.
Kermit and Fozzie Bear and everybody. And Gonzo. I mean, it's great.
Kermit the Frog here.
It's great.
Oh
What's the pig's name? Holy smokes! I just
Miss Piggy.
Yes, thank you. Miss, I'm cutting that out. Miss Piggy, like it's just fantastic. It's fantastic, and the songs and the music, and it's so sad and so happy, and it's great. All right.
I hope does the library have it? I may check that out and see.
Yeah, the library probably has it. Disney Plus. You can probably Google.
Yeah,
well,
find
actually,
it.
I'm not gonna say that because that's bad, but you can probably find it in the library.
There
Two
are
parts I
ways.
gotta cut out. Good God, we're starting rare form today. Good to start with the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the first question: what was the civil rights movement like in Virginia?
Do you want to start? Or you want me to start?
I'll start. So, Virginia has this romanticized version of itself where civility always reigns because it wasn't as violent here physically versus in like Alabama and Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
However, I would say that locking children out of school for 5 years is violence against children.
Yes.
So the political mechanisms that were here were different, but they did harm as well.
Yeah, I mean, Virginia, it's always been weird to me how little kind of role Virginia tends to play kind of when you talk about the civil rights movement nationally in terms of like historical context, because the litigation that comes out of Virginia is pivotal to what the civil rights movement was. I mean, every step of the way, there are Supreme Court cases that really are going along, in the really a 10-15 year period, there's like 10 U.S. Supreme Court cases out of Virginia alone, which is hugely substantial, one of which being the Brown decision, of course. And then the Griffin decision in 1964, which forced schools to reopen and save public education effectively. So, yeah, I mean, Virginia kind of thought there was holier than thou, in air quotes, right? We're better than the rest of the South because we didn't deputize our state troopers to use violence or to physically harm protesters and things like that. But and they also thought that NAACP lawyers were incompetent and they would easily beat them in court, which was completely not true. And they continued to get washed by the NAACP lawyers on a very, very regular basis. But I think the other part is that, you know, these very savvy Virginia politicians looked and they kind of read the room and they were like, look, well, these guys aren't using violence. So, like, if we win, we're not going to win the court of public opinion. So I think they recognize the importance of also winning the narrative as much as winning the cases. And they, in fact, weren't really winning either. I mean, they kind of won the narrative for the day because they controlled the news source for the most part, but certainly did not win the narrative for the long term. So, yeah, and like Leah said too, wasn't really particularly violent compared to other places. Certainly there was Bloody Monday in Danville, Virginia, which was a very rare exception to that. But a lot of that was very intentional, right? Virginia wanted to look better than the rest of the South, but also thought, you know, we're better than them, so we can just outperform them in court and we'll be fine. And they couldn't have been more wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and in some ways, you know, the civil rights movement in Virginia is still going. I saw that the photo of George Floyd being projected onto the Lee Monument in Richmond is going to be in National Geographic for influential photos for the year.
Nice.
It's going to be on the cover. I mean, Virginia has the capital of Confederacy, former Confederate White House. I mean, Virginia is very important in the history of the United States and certainly the South. But yeah, it's just interesting how little Virginia gets talked about with regards to the broader civil rights movement.
Yeah.
Okay, so on to the next question. What is the difference between an artifact and a replica?
Leah, I'm going to let you have this one.
Okay, guys. Okay, so let me calm down. An artifact is a thing that was created at a particular time period. It could be a letter, it could be a quilt, it could be a house coat, it could be a bed, all types of things. But a replica is a reproduction of an item. So think artifact, you can't touch it because our hands have oils in them and that may diminish or hurt whether it's a piece of art or whatever it is. But a replica, you can hold it, pass it around, talk about it, engage with it. Some replicas are just like, so they have the same weight, the same color, the same whatever as the original, but you can engage with it with your hands. So yeah, it's cool.
Interesting.
Can something be both?
Yeah. All right. Talk more.
No, I was just curious. Like, what if it's I don't know. What if it's an old replica? Does that then make it an artifact?
Yeah, of the time period it was built in. So, like, okay. So, if someone was doing a replica of a sword that was from the American Revolution, but they remade it in the Civil War era, it's still a replica, but it's also, and today, that's an artifact from the Civil War era about the American Revolution.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it didn't mean to be that meta, but it's just interesting to think about the different kind of categorizations of objects and spaces.
I'd be curious to see what from this era becomes an artifact.
Twitter. All Twitter.
Like
the social media
archives are the artifacts. Like the internet in and of itself is an artifact. They're not going to be. Yeah, that is interesting to think about. What's like what tangible things like, or will there won't be? Will there be the same value on tangible things as there are now? Like,
The original
That's a good
iPhone.
question. Ooh. And then I think like family heirlooms, like they'll still have importance, but to that family, unless it's like a high ranking family.
Right.
So I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, speaking of things that we want to know more about, the next question is: which historical figures would you like to know more about, and why?
I would say I was sort of torn between. My original answer wanted to be Queen Elizabeth II, but then I thought I could go ahead and watch The Crown or like a documentary about her. There are so many different
Find a
options.
primary source.
You know, exactly. You know, so then I started thinking, I was like, oh, like, you know, maybe Queen Victoria. But then I thought,
Yeah, she was wild.
Mary Queen of Scots.
Yeah.
I think she's a very peculiar woman from history. She's got an interesting story to her. She was very powerful for her time. But I'm just also very interested in the British monarchy. That's something that I find very fascinating.
It's interesting.
So yeah. Mary Queen of Scots is my top choice.
I mean, just in that dynamic of how so much was changing, and then colonization.
Yeah, she went to the throne when she was a wee baby. Her dad died just a couple days after she was born, and technically, she was a queen, but you know, not really.
Ooh, the nuance. Yeah, that does sound good.
Who's yours there?
I'm gonna go with Hubert Harrison. He's part of the teens, 20s again on the New Negro movement, and just how his perception of what's going on. He passes away in 1927, so he was there, but then his interpretation and stopped because he passed away. So just more on him in general.
Okay.
What about you, Kanan?
It's a great question. I'm glad you asked. Because the person I picked, which would be not for the reasons that people think, but I'd go with Mahatma Gandhi, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And I think a big reason of that is I recently found out that Gandhi didn't really like black people like that. And that's a very opposite position to which many people would have predicted. And so I kind of already started looking into it a little bit. But I saw a quote on the wall and, somewhere randomly, I would say, I won't specifically name the location, but it's like, all the Gandhi quotes that are always popular. And that's kind of brought up. I was like, Gandhi didn't really like black people, right? And it was like, what are you talking about? And you just Google it, and it's just like, oh, there's like a bajillion articles here about how Gandhi didn't, how he spoke about Africans in particular.
Okay,
and people
I was going to say.
Yeah, people of darker skin complexions. And it's just like, he did not use, and he didn't pull any punches either, which is just like, you have this guy who's just a symbol of like non-violent, like peaceful protest, not, very like strong
that
principles.
Was harped upon.
And then harbored these beliefs about people, and it's just like, But it goes to show what we've said a million times in the show. I think, don't demonize, don't deify people.
Yeah.
Like, people are people, and people aren't perfect. And I think that's another example. And I'm not here to tarnish the legacy of Gandhi or anything like that. But I will say, these are his words, and you can go look them up for yourself. But to me, it's just very interesting about how, contradictory, his peaceful views were with some of his more less loud views.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Especially when you think about the civil rights movement and how his nonviolence motivated many people in the movement. Then it's like, what do you...
One thing that I find really interesting about Gandhi, and I really didn't know a whole lot about Gandhi, before I got into college. I knew his quote, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." I think that's probably one of his most quoted phrases. But I took a class on comparative politics and international relations. And so we talked about the India-Pakistan situation. And, there was one day my teacher was out sick, so we watched a documentary. And this is pre-COVID. So we watched a documentary on how the situation was between India and Pakistan and the British government when, at the time, it was all India. And they were working on that dividing line to create the country of Pakistan, and did not know that Gandhi was in favor of keeping the two states together.
No.
Yeah. But then, as we can see now, he eventually failed at his mission, but his leadership style, which we also talk about in my leadership classes, is very, very widely revered. But, given this new information, that's sort of interesting.
Well, and we have to consider too. Our access to information is significantly higher than what it was in years past, and so your ability to hide certain aspects about your past or whatever, intentionally or unintentionally, was significantly better back then. So I think it just goes to show, people aren't perfect, and I'm very curious to see, just going forward, elected officials who have had social medias for most of their lives, right? And what going back and looking at previous tweets and Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, whatever
TikTok.
posts, or TikTok or Vine or whatever, MySpace even, like just going back and seeing what
MySpace.
people posted and like how
Mhm.
that impacts people being elected in the future and stuff, and what that looks like. Things are certainly different. Certainly different.
Yeah.
On to the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So, I know we had talked a couple shows ago about maybe doing a Moton movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, who would you cast in the Moton School Story, the movie?
So what we've done is we've each been given or picked or both one kind of prominent person out of the story, and we've cast that person, and we'll just kind of each go around Robin style and kind of talk about those people we've picked. It's too big of a cast to cast everybody, so we didn't try to do that. But we each picked a person, or got a person. So,
You want to start first, Kanan?
can. How about wait? You start first. Your person.
My
makes
person?
more sense.
Yeah, okay. So, main
Wait.
character of the movie, Barbara Johns. So, for Barbara, I was thinking Hayley Berry. And so she's a younger actress. She's a little more up and coming. She is part of the musical group with her sister, Chloe and Haley. And she is also cast to play Ariel in the live-action Little Mermaid Disney movie. And I think, visually, she does look like a young Barbara Johns. So I think that aspect works very well. And she's clearly got the acting ability. So I think Hayley Berry would be a great choice. And she's also got the age for it. She's in the same age range.
Yeah,
so that would work real well.
Which is really important, especially because Barbara J was 16, so she needs to look 16.
Yeah. And
Leah, any honorable mentions for Barbara J?
No, not that I can think of.
I have one.
Okay, go
Her
ahead.
name is Sophia Wiley. She is an actor in High School Musical, the series. She is 16, if not maybe 17, but she's in the good age range, and she's got some pretty good acting chops. So I definitely think as an honorable mention, I'll toss her in there.
Yeah.
And I guess that next. I had the Oliver Hill Senior, who was, of course, the main attorney who was based in Richmond, NAACP, who came and took the Davis case here in Prince Edward County. And I went with a pick who I think is probably the best actor-rapper who is alive right now. And that is Mr. Mos Def. I think that he would be an incredible pick to play Oliver Hill. I think he's shown that he's got the range in many different other pieces he's been in. He's acted in a piece before that's set kind of during this time period. He was in Cadillac Records, so he's familiar with the time period. And he's just amazing. So I definitely think that Mos Def would make a great Oliver Hill Sr. in the Moton School Story, the movie.
Okay, guys. So my person was Reverend Griffin. Now, Reverend Griffin was prominent throughout the Moton School Story from beyond the strike until after it. So we came up with, I thought, Jeffrey Wright. He's been in a ton of things. Westworld, Casino Royale, The Good Dinosaur. But I first saw him in The Hunger Games, and I just liked his presentation style. So I think he'd do a good job.
Yeah.
Also Cadillac Records, so he's got chemistry with Mos Def. So that could work out very well.
Go.
I mean, I support it. So, and he was in Lackawanna Blues. So just, and how he portrays characters, I enjoy his acting style. And because Reverend Griffin was so prominent and went through so much during this time period, to be able to portray that and do it justice, I know he can do that. So
Yeah, he immerses himself in whatever characters he plays. It's quite interesting to watch. Quite interesting. Well, a little bit shorter for the finale, but I think that's it, right?
Yeah. That's it. Wow, y'all. A whole season.
For the whole season.
It's been a blast.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully you enjoyed being with us.
Oh, I have. Absolutely.
We're going to figure out what season 3 looks like, but yeah, we've enjoyed having you with us, and hopefully our listeners have as well. We will do a season 3, date, time, all that stuff, TBD, but let's just make it through 2020 first, and we'll figure the rest out.
Get new year,
Yeah, please. And certainly keep sending your questions. We'll get to them in some way, shape, or form. Info@motonmuseum.org or DM us on social media. Happy holidays, happy new year.